So I have unleashed the demons.
So wait, what? Josh went to your house one time?
Yeah, you sent him to help me do the podcast to
I, di-
figure the technical stuff out because I was having so much trouble.
I didn't know that actually happened.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And then I told you about it.
No, you didn't.
We tried to upload it and kept trying to upload it, and it wouldn't upload for Josh either. And I was like, if it's going to be a technical difficulty, it's going to happen to me.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and so I sat with it earlier this week kind of thing, and finally figured out there was a permissions thing that I had to verify something before YouTube would let me upload something longer than 15 minutes.
Oh wow. Well,
It was so tucked under stuff, it was hard to find.
Yeah.
Not easy.
Yeah.
But that's the fun of it, is learning all that stuff, you know?
And you made it. I like to just know how to do it the first time. I got other things that I'm having adventures in learning. Technical difficulties is not one of them.
Well, awesome. I don't know of any other storytellers that have their own YouTube channel. Do you?
Yeah, lots of storytellers have their own YouTube channel.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Do they interview people too, like you?
I think I didn't check on this. Because I'm not doing it to, I'm doing it for me more than anything, but I don't know of any. So, but there's a big world out there that I don't know about, so. But mine will be different because it's just me and who I'm interviewing, so.
Yeah.
Everybody's got a place for that, even if somebody else is doing it.
Can you interview me and Josh for The Monk and the Mechanic?
Yeah, I can.
Because we explore stories like the hero's journey and stuff like that together.
Yeah. And I told you too, like I would love to be on y'all's show. And I'll post that on mine too, but because I've got an interview with a friend of mine who the lady that we went on the trip to Colombia.
Mm-hmm.
Because there was so much backstory with why we went to Colombia and stuff like that. And so, and I'm going to post that up. And yeah, so there's other things. But yeah, I would love to be on there with y'all, and we can mutually do it and post it in both places. Or, yeah, the questions that I'm asking have to do with stories and storytellers, like people who identify with that.
Mm-hmm.
But the three of us could come up with some great questions and interview each other, or I could interview y'all. It doesn't matter, but I would love to do that with y'all.
All right. Well,
I'd love to be a regular feature on y'all's show.
All right. Well, we'll discuss that. See what we can come up with. All right. So I guess we'll jump into the chanting part of this program. I guess enter into a place of meditation. Enter into a sacred space. Find your center. And I always like to visualize that I'm chanting for the whole world. Somehow by doing this chanting, I'm putting something positive out in the universe, and it has effects. And so I kind of visualize that as I'm chanting. Sometimes there's very little that we can do, but we can chant, we can pray, and we can send out positive vibes to the world. And here we go. Refuge in the three jewels. I take refuge in the Buddha, the one who shows me the way in this life. I take refuge in the Dharma, the way of understanding and of love. I take refuge in the Sangha, community that lives in harmony and awareness. the refuge of Buddha, I clearly see the path of light and beauty in the world. Dwelling in the refuge of Dharma, I learn to open many doors on the path of transformation. Dwelling in the refuge of Sangha, shining light that supports me, keeping my practice free from obstruction. Taking refuge in the Buddha and myself, I aspire to help all people recognize their own awakened nature, realizing the mind of love. Taking refuge in the Dharma and myself, I aspire to help all people fully master the ways of practice and walk together on the path of liberation. Taking refuge in the Sangha and myself, I aspire to help all people build full-fold communities to embrace all beings and support their transformation. We'll bow to the shrine 3 times. And somewhere there are people bowing at a Buddhist shrine. There's people meditating. There's people chanting. Millions and millions of Buddhists all over the world and other religions practicing their wisdom, wisdom tradition. And so we're entering in with millions of people that are in a sacred space right now. Offering of flowers. This spread of flowers, fresh hued and fragrant, I offer at the sacred lotus feet of the noble sage, with flowers in great variety, the Buddha I adore, and by this merit may I gain release. Even as these flowers must fade, my body too will pass away. Offering of light. With lights brightly shining, dispelling the gloom, I honor the fully awakened, that light of the triple world who dispels the gloom of ignorance. Offering of incense. Perfumed with infinite qualities, the Tathagata, fragrant of face and form, I revere with incense sweet and penetrating. Offering of water. We offer water, symbol of purity, to the Buddhas of all times. May this water both wash away the obscurations of ignorance and sate the thirst of craving and aversion. Notes on mindful breathing. Anapadasati is mindfulness on respiration. Ana means inhalation. Anapada means exhalation. Concentration on the breathing process leads to one-pointedness of the mind and ultimately to insight, which enables one to attain liberation, freedom, and perfection. The Buddha practiced concentration on respiration before he attained enlightenment, but this beneficial meditation may be practiced by any person, irrespective of religious beliefs. I will inhale through the nostrils normally, without strain, without force. While doing so, the mind may wander, but one should not be discouraged. When a wandering thought is detected, label it as thinking and return to the breath. Thank you, Josh. Okay. We'll do 15 minutes seated meditation. Breathing in through the nostrils without force, without strain. one thing I really get out of Woke House, other than the meditation, is the conversation and the opportunity to connect with other people. And so I got a couple of scriptures that I've been looking at this week, and I don't really know where I'm going with it, but it's a part of Buddhist history and how Buddhism has kind of transformed over the years. But I'm hoping that it'll stir up some type of conversation with us, and ultimately we can talk about anything we want to. But I would like to read something to you guys. I have a scripture out of the Bodhisattva Doctrine in Buddhist Sanskrit literature. And then I'm going to start introducing some things from the Flower Suture, the Flower Ornament Sutra. And there's a lot to be said about this sutra, but maybe someday we'll focus just on that, and I can read the introductory part and why the Flower Ornament Sutra is so important and so powerful. So basically this scripture talks about early Buddhism, which is called Theravada Buddhism. And it seems like the idea behind the first kind of turning of the wheel of Dharma, as soon as Buddha started preaching, it seemed like people took his message, and it might have been his first message, that this world was suffering. At its very base, at least the human perception of it, how a human interprets reality, is that everything is suffering and nothing lasts, and there's nothing to count on in this life. And their way to counteract that is to find out what caused that suffering. And the Buddha said that what caused that suffering was our attachment to things in this life, our passions, our emotions, our expectations. And so people that heard this message, they started following the Buddha around. And Buddha had renounced the world, renounced his family, renounced common everyday clothing. He started wearing a robe that made out of rags. The early Buddhists, they actually went to like the city dump, and found like pieces of cloth, and they would sew those pieces of cloth together and make their own robe, because they had renounced everything. Renounced jobs, homes, families, everything, and they were destitute. They were basically homeless, and they begged one meal a day. Now, the reason they did that was ultimately they wanted to focus on eliminating all their desires, all their wants, all their passions, all their expectations, and turn inward, because they were trying to eliminate suffering. And to eliminate suffering, according to how they interpreted Buddha's message, was that if they turned away from the world and they stopped desiring things and stopped getting caught up in things, and the more remote and removed they were from the workaday world, the less suffering would come into their life. Now, whether that was Buddha's idea or not, they followed his example, because he was homeless and he had renounced everything. So I kind of believe that Buddha turned around one day and there was all these people that were dressing like him and following him, and everywhere he sat down, they sat down. Everywhere he slept, they slept. And he might not have intentionally wanted to become the rock star of the day, but now he had all these groupies, And so I think what he did is just try to organize them the best way he could. And he was like, okay, well, if you are going to follow me, let's kind of figure this out together. And so there became rules for monks and rules for nuns and all these other rules. So it kind of turned into a very human system. But I guess the point I'm trying to make is hundreds of years later, some of the new Buddhists started seeing that turning away from the world was kind of a selfish act, or trying to eliminate your own suffering was a very selfish act. And that although the early monks and nuns would preach and go into the city and tell people Buddha's message, it was ultimately like, well, you know, the only way to eliminate suffering and become enlightenment is to turn away from the world. So I'm basically asking you to become a monk or a nun and come follow us. But if you don't feel like leaving your family and leaving your job and leaving everything, then maybe you can practice some of this stuff, and in the next life you can be a monk or a nun. And so basically the message was, ultimately you're not going to get enlightened as a householder, as a married man or a married woman. You're eventually going to have to become a monk to actually gain enlightenment, because you're still caught up in the world, and the world is dragging you down and causing suffering. But like 500 years later, there became this new thought, and it was like, wait a minute, that's not what Buddha meant. We've had this all wrong for 500 years. And then there arose this sect called the Mahayana. The first people were called Theravadins, and then the other people that kind of rose up within them was the Mahayanas, and they were saying, no, that's a very limited way to interpret Buddha's message. Buddha's message is way broader than that. Buddha's message is, it's up to us to, yes, eliminate our own suffering, but it's also everybody's suffering that we're involved with here. And you don't have to leave society. You can actually use the hardships and the pains and the divorces and the remarriages and the losing of your job and the sickness and the getting wellness and all the things in society as like rocket fuel to increase your compassion. And ultimately it was compassion behind Buddha's message. That's what the bigger picture was. Not leaving your home, not leaving your family, not eliminating your own suffering. But the only reason Buddha brought a message to us is because he had compassion, and he wanted us to get off this wheel of birth and death. And there are many ways to do that. And so the Mahayanas said, all of us are wrapped up together in this suffering, and I can't escape it unless you escape it, and you can't escape it unless I escape it. We got to work together and use everything as rocket fuel to get out of this suffering. And so that kind of caused a division between the early Buddhists and the Mahayanas. So let me see if I can read this real quick, and then we can hopefully discuss it. And this is kind of dense, so I apologize. But it says, when Buddha preached the Four Noble Truths, the first truth was dukkha, which is life is suffering. The older tradition of Buddhism emphasized the fact that pain, so persistent that it tended to generate a kind of morbid cowardice. So the early monks and nuns sought to escape pain at all costs and step out of society. But the Mahayana, the new group, were new and revolutionary in their idea that pain should be welcomed with joy and used as a teaching tool. You could also use it to serve your fellow man. The alchemy of altruism, or loving kindness, generosity, empathy, could transmute any evil into a good thing. And it led to a re-evaluation of Buddha's teaching. So from the Mahayana came the ideal of the Bodhisattva that lives just to help other people. And all that he suffers, he or she learns from. So there was a shift away from dukkha, or suffering, or pain, to the idea of karuna, which is love. And the formula for the first Four Noble Truths begin not to be regarded as the central doctrine of Buddhism. Pain endured for the sake of enlightenment or for the sake of helping others is what is most important. So, from turning your back on society and going into a monastery or living the homeless ascetic life and focusing on your own navel, your own life, your own mind, your own liberation, to now here's this group that's saying, wait a minute, we've been doing it wrong for 500 years. We've been running away from pain. We should be running towards it. And we've been running away from people. We should be running towards people. And so I wonder, and I don't know exactly where I'm going with this, but I'm wondering what comes up for you when I read that or talk about this situation. Is there anything that comes to mind?
Okay, I just have to say one thing.
Yes.
When you were talking about how he didn't ask people to follow him, people just kind of began to follow him and sat where he sat and listened when he spoke and all of that. All I could picture was that scene in Forrest Gump when he's running across the United States and like slowly more people join him, and then he just like stops and turns around and there's like 50 people behind him running and there's like 100 people, you know? So I think when people understand your cause, they tend to follow it, and that just made me think of that.
Thank you, Kayla.
Well, they interpret it in their own way, too. Like, he never said why he was running. They just put their own reasons to it. And I was thinking about the Grateful Dead, too. It's like they just started playing music, and then people started, like, attaching their own meaning to it. So, yeah, I had a very vivid story come up from that. But the thing I wanted to talk about, and I think there is a balance, and I think you have to get to it, in my opinion, you have to get to a certain point before you can reach outward. Because I was contemplating the Christian, I don't know how to phrase it, but the Bible I grew up with, which was in the Baptist church, is like, there's a phrase that said, what the commandments boil down to in the New Testament, Jesus supposedly said, is love the Lord your God with all your heart and love your neighbor as yourself. And so that's the tendency that we focus to do it in that order, but understanding that that time or space or reality is not linear, that's circular. And like for me, I had to get to a point where I absolutely loved myself without question. This idea of this concept of a Godhead outside of myself did not alleviate anything for me. So understanding that I'm divine, loving myself, then puts me in a place where I can love my neighbor, which is like the Bodhisattva thing, that you can be there for other people. And then through that expression shows that you love, and what I call the Creator, as yourself. I mean, like it's like a circular thing instead of a linear. So I think that both, probably there was a group of people that had to alleviate their own suffering or come to terms with it maybe, or understand it before they could reach out to other people. So I think neither one of them's wrong or right. It's just an evolution of how things, or how love is expressed.
Thank you, Shane.
I think, obviously I'm still reading that book by Joseph Campbell, and his example in this situation is that we misunderstand the message due to who is giving it to us. So Christians look at Jesus and say, he's this incredible being, he's the Son of God, and a lot of times put by what he's actually said and the teachings he gave for the fact that he's so awesome. And I think in your story, just talking about Buddha is kind of the same thing. It's, that we're going to look at this guy, oh my gosh, he's so incredible. He is amazing. Well, he is not the point, or she is not the point. The point is the message. The point is what you're supposed to learn from that, and you take that in and you go with that. You go from within to without. That's how you read, that's the transition, that's the difference. And people who become the deity versus the old gods that never were truly people. So when we talk about Jesus and Buddha, they're not just religious leaders, they're historical figures. So that takes them from this sort of make-believe into a reality. Now we look at these as real people, and it changes how we look at these religious figures. As they are now, it's external. We put all of this on them. They have to teach us how to do this. They have to carry us forward. They have to be on the other side to show us where to go. They instead of us. As far as trying to pull yourself out of this world, I would agree with those. I think that's like a step. I don't think it is right or wrong, but maybe, and I don't know the order, but maybe you're supposed to fix yourself. Maybe you're supposed to be a monk to be able to get to the point to where you can go out to other people. Or maybe once you've been amongst other people, you get to a point where you no longer really need that interaction. But even as a monk, you have people interaction. You're dealing with the other monks. But, maybe once, I don't know. I don't know where I'm going with this, but maybe it's a multi-step. Maybe it's like you get to a certain point, you no longer need this. Now you move on to that, and maybe it's different for all of us. Maybe the order's different. If we've been here before, do you know which you did last time? Were you the monk last time? Were you the center of attention around everyone else? Were you Jesus? Were you Buddha? Where you could go with that. But I think for me personally, it's almost easier to separate from everyone else and take everything internal. And that's been one of the hardest battles with the Buddhist, looking at this. It's very easy for me to say it's all my fault. It's very easy for me to say I'm the only one that can fix anything, and everyone else is just, on their own path, and to exclude myself from everyone else. It's harder to put myself in a position. There is some truth to that, but there's also a lot of truth to how that reacts with other people in your life. Whether it be somebody very close to you or somebody at a distance. How is that? If you just sit there and internally battle that by yourself forever and never speak to anybody, is that enlightenment? Is that where you need to be? Is I'm perfect as long as nobody talks to me or looks at me or gets in my way or whatever. I'll just walk around. We're watching The Mandalorian, and I was like, and the big deal, if you haven't seen The Mandalorian, but the big deal is he wears this helmet, and he can't take the helmet off. And I actually made the comment, how great would that be? I'm down for that. Put a helmet on my head. Nobody knows who I am. Nobody knows what I'm doing. And just like a lot of Star Wars, there's a lot of sort of behind the story is a story in that. How easy is it for you to wear a mask or a helmet or whatever and then do what you need to do in life and nobody really knows who you are. You know, nobody really knows the core of you.
You don't have to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
You can hide behind a mask.
You can hide scars. You can hide whatever. You know, we don't know what that guy looks like underneath his helmet.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we don't know why he wears it, but he wears it. You know, that's a common. Yeah, I'm not gonna go down the you know, Joseph Campbell route, but.
Everyone can wear a mask at any point in their day. You know, you work in customer service, you throw on your customer service mask, and then you go home and you throw on your mother mask. You know, and then sometimes you just kind of lose yourself within those. Thank you for that, Josh. That was really insightful. I wanted to share what really stuck out to me. The quote that was, "Pain can be used as a teaching tool." I thought that was really important because it's so true. Everything that happens to you is a lesson to be learned. Everything happens for a reason, I believe. And recently I was I went through something that really hurt me, and so I was trying to figure out a way, like, how do you just let go of something and get over it? Like, how do you just get over something? And so I was reading a bunch of articles and stuff like that, and one of the things said is to write down all the good things that came out of the bad thing that happened. And so whenever I wrote out the things that it improved me, it improved my life, it improved my relationship and stuff like that, and then it actually made me feel really grateful for that situation. And I feel like that can be used in any situation, like through divorce, or through you lose a job, or if you fall off a skateboard, anything.
Thank you, Charlie.
I'll try that. I love this, and I struggle with this, you know, because I have my own business, but yet I like my own business, which is like, that's why I feel so blessed right now to be able to have this opportunity to go out to a ranch and be out in the ranch, you know, where I don't have to answer my phone because, you know, I didn't have internet at the beginning when I was in the ranch, you know, and it really gave me a lot of freedom, and I love that. I love to just be able to not be judged or scored, you know, and be able to just live my life and be free, you know, and have that confidence. Because when other people start to judge you, right, that confidence goes down. But then I still go to the other side of, like, I am lived to inspire and to inspire people. I need to be, I have a business that I need to run, so I need to get a profit. I need to be promoting and saying all these things left and right, and then I struggle with this. I'm like, where am I? Who am I? You know, and I have a mentor class that I take, and they tell me, you know, that you're an artist. You know, you're a scattered artist, because I do everything. I do video, do like painting, and it's a lot, you know, and I tell myself, you know, when is enough, you know, and are you happy in life? Do you have to do all this stuff, you know, or do you just post whenever you can on what you're doing? Because that's who you are and what you do, and maybe people get inspired by that, and that's it. You know, don't kill yourself over trying to do what you're doing. You know, and luckily I'm not selling crap. You know, I'm not selling junk. You know, I'm selling knowledge. I'm not selling it. I'm just, you know, this is what I live, and this is what I do, and if somebody gets inspired, they get inspired.
Thank you, Tam. And it's also really nice to see you. Yeah, this constant running away from and running to, it's like literally minute to minute my whole life. So like my whole job literally is to make connections with people and to try to help them the best that I can, whether inspire them or help them find resources or provide training. And so I go into work with the mindset of a Bodhisattva. I'm here to serve others, but as soon as my phone rings or as soon as somebody comes in the door, I'm like, shit, I gotta deal with this person. It's almost like, I'm there and but then when the phone rings, it's almost like, what's this gonna be about? You know what I mean? It's kind of like that knee-jerk reaction of wanting to be with others but not wanting to be with others, wanting to interact with society but yet not wanting to interact with society, wanting to help but not wanting to be burdened with other people's problems, being vulnerable and being there for somebody to being closed down and shut off from people. It's almost like a minute-to-minute struggle of opening my heart over and over and over again, Why do you think, like, the early Buddhists, the Mahayana said we were running away from our troubles by becoming monks and nuns? We're supposed to be running towards our passions and our basically attachments, and we've been running from society. We're supposed to be running into the mess and into the chaos and into the dirt and the mud and the anger and the tears. That's where the true rocket fuel is to get us to enlightenment. Where do you think that idea came from, or how can it apply to our lives now?
Well, I mean, I think that that's what separates us from the animal realm, right? Is that we experience these, and it's not that you see videos of animals that seem sad and experience loss, but as a human, we have such a wide range of emotional intelligence and what we experience and how we perceive things. And if this is the realm that we become enlightened on, if we run away from the experiences that make us human, how can we possibly become enlightened? It seems to me that the more I experience in my life, I don't know if it's enlightenment, but I realize that I can't ever, to judge how somebody responds to something, the more that I go through, the more I realize that judging other people's responses is pointless. I don't know. I don't know shit. The more that I experience, the more I realize that I really truly know nothing. I don't know how the best way to respond to something would be. Unless I've experienced it myself, I can tell you what the best way that my response might have been. But, it's hard to go through these experiences. I know that for me, the death of my mother, I ran from that for years by filling every second of every day. And it didn't go away. It was still there. And I had to deal with it. I had to run to it. I had to walk through it. I had to go through all of the feelings that were part of that. And it left me at the other side where I can talk about it now without breaking down. And I can experience it, and I can also experience the joy of my mom, which I couldn't for a while, Anyway, so just for me, I think that that's important. I think that that's where that shift occurred, is that they realized if they run from the human experience, how can they possibly become enlightened? If that's when they're supposed to become enlightened, is when they're on the human plane.
Thank you, Diane.
Yeah, I can relate to you with my mom too. My mom has it's very difficult, and I'm there. I'm always there for her. I and take care of her, and I will listen to her. So if she's no longer here, no matter how she acts with me, because she's my mom. You know, nobody else to put up with her. So we can. And in this day and age, how I do it too is I deliberately keep hashtags that are full fight. I want to die. And I go and I look out just to see people how they struggle with hashtags and I show my students in the freedom and stuff like that. That's what I do.
So you see people that have put like hashtag I want to die, and then you look them up and encourage them? Is that what you said?
Yeah.
That's pretty amazing.
Yeah, or also when you write something, you know, or post a picture, hashtag, yeah, those stupid things, you know, like that, and like, you know, because it's gonna pop up in the feed or whatever it is that they give people.
Thank you, Tam. Anybody have anything else coming up for you right now? Make a connection to any of this? Shane is being awful quiet.
I clicked on mute because I was going to say something, but then the words weren't coming. But Tam, I really appreciate what you said about doing that, because I got to a point a couple of years ago and had a very logical thought in my head about how I wanted my life not to go, and called Kylie because I thought, oh, he understands this and will help me in my goal. And through that, and him connecting with me, like, I got to the point where I realized that no matter how bad things get, and no matter how horrible I feel, if I can laugh, I will be okay. Now, I know that's not everybody's solution and what everybody needs, but for me, it's like, if I can just laugh, then I realize why I'm here. Like, or that it will be okay. I don't know if that necessarily does that, but I had a conversation this week with another friend who had also gotten to about the same point that I had, and she had her own epiphany about what made her life worth living and what made her choose to continue. And you know, that's just really important, like that, but we have to come to that, I believe, for ourselves. Like, we do need people around us to be our helpers, but ultimately it's our decision to make, and like our validation. Like, nobody can give us reasons enough, or that, you know, when you look at people and like, I don't know why they did this, they seem to have it all, but what they were missing was not all the things that other people think that you should have. And so you have to come to what's important for you and why you think you chose this quest, if that's part of your belief system, and knowing when you're done and how that comes. And I believe that it's not, for me, it was not going to be at my own hands. So it's important.
Thank you, Shane. So let me read this out, the Flower Suture, real quick. It says, the Buddha's body extends throughout all the worlds. It fills the cosmos without end. Quintessent, without essence, it cannot be grasped. It appears just to save all beings. The Buddha's body extends throughout all the worlds. It fills the cosmos without end. Quintessence without essence, it cannot be grasped. It appears just to save all beings. What's your thoughts when I read a scripture like that? How could Buddha's body extend throughout the whole cosmos?
It's just
Go ahead, Tam, and then Shane. Go ahead, Tam.
Just by leading by example.
What's that?
Leading by example?
Leading by example? Okay.
Yeah.
Shane?
Oh, I don't know why. I just was thinking, how is it a riddle? To be the riddle, it's it's just energy. Like the Buddha nature, the Buddha body, it's just at different vibrations to express itself. And the Buddha nature has, I think we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, is that in the along the lines of the collective consciousness or the Christ consciousness or other names that's put together, the we are one kind of concept. Is that just a different name of that? And it's just an expression. So the Buddha body is this, but at a lower vibration, so it manifests itself in the physical. But it's also thought, it's also a concept, it's also language. So it's just all energy.
Yeah.
I kind of look at it, I guess, sort of in a similar way. That's the connection to the rest of the universe. So, although we live on the earth and we're in these bodies, and we tend to think of things in a very three-dimensional way, it's larger than that. It's a connection to the universe. It's four-dimensional, it's five-dimensional. It's, larger than what we see and hear, taste and smell.
Thank you, Josh. Anybody else? I don't know, when I was reading it, I was kind of thinking about how black and white I used to think everything was. There was a time when I was hyper religious with Christianity, and if something bad happened to me, it was the devil. And if something good happened to me, it was God. And I went through my whole life like that. And according to what we just read and discussed, that sometimes when I lose my job, it's actually what I need in that moment. It's exactly what I need. And like Diane said, you fall down and break your arm. That actually happened to me. I got thrown off of a horse and broke my arm and lost my job because I couldn't do that work with a broken arm, but it actually led me to the next thing I needed in my life. So I was there with a broken arm, on pain medication, had surgery, lost my job, didn't know how I was going to pay my bills. But that very chaos is what led me to be right here on this cushion right now talking to you. So that was the Buddha. That horse was the Buddha. That broken arm was the Buddha. That loss of the job was also the Buddha. When something good happens to me, or I think it's good, that is also the Buddha. I can't determine anymore what is bad and what is good for me. Because sometimes when I think something's a blessing, it turns into a curse. And sometimes when I think something's a curse, it actually turns into be a blessing. And so when I read that scripture, I just have to remind myself the good and the bad. The things that I want and the things that I don't want. They're all the Buddha teaching me lessons,
will say, like, part of meditation and intuition and connecting to your inner voice is that the Buddha nature doesn't always have to break your arm to get your attention. Like, if you pay attention, you can make those shifts in learning without such drama and chaos and pain and suffering. Not that you can alleviate it all, because we live in a world that, you know, is the dual nature, the black and white, but we're on a spectrum of it, and we can find balance in that.
It's like a frequency then, kind of like, right, like a frequency?
You're breaking up a little bit, Tam. What did you say?
Like, is there like a frequency?
A frequency? I think Shane's saying that the Buddha doesn't always have to show up like a sledgehammer over your head. If you pay attention, you can be easily led instead of having to hit a brick wall every time to learn something.
Yeah, like we need to listen and seek, you know, help and be able to trust that what other people say, especially if they're older than you, that they know what's up, you know, for real. Because a lot of us we don't listen to them, and, you know, and sometimes others don't know everything, because they grew up, you know, with a past of themselves, right? But those who are leading, you know, with the way that you want to, like, be, you know, listen to that, you know, to that, but, you know,
But no.
Thank you, Tam.
I was gonna say, but know that, like, I learn a lot from the kids. I say the kids, but they're grown, but, like, I learn a lot from people that are younger than me, because, like, so many things I have, like, I'm set in my ways. Like, I have learned some things, but I still haven't learned everything. And so it's like that new generation coming up has different approaches and different insights. So it's always that you always have to shift in the teacher and the student. Don't get focused on somebody else has the answers, because you have a lot that you've learned through your experience to share and to teach as well.
Once again, I need you and you need me, right? All right. Well, before we go into the chanting and closing, does anybody have anything, any burning desire to say anything before we move on?
Thanks for doing this, Kylie.
Yeah. I want to say hi to Christy. I haven't heard anything from Christy, but I see her. She's not working today. That's unusual. Just want to tell Christy we love you. Okay. A little bit.
She said she actually has to go into work tomorrow.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
And I heard Kayla got a job. She's sitting over there like a monk with her robe on. She's enlightened already. She doesn't need us.
Yeah.
What job did you get? What job did you get, Kayla?
I'm actually going to be working for the same company that Noah's girlfriend Lauren works for.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think I'm on a different campaign than her, but it's like tech support, so it's a decent gig. I'm going to be working from home, so that's nice too. I don't have to go into work. So yeah.
That's awesome. Congratulations.
Thanks.
Love you.
Love you.
All right, guys. Well, Josh, you want to pull up on the screen the closing ritual. All right, everybody now. Contemplation of the 10 perfecting qualities. May I be generous and helpful. May I be pure, virtuous, and well-disciplined. May I not be selfish. May I be strenuous, energetic, and persevering. May I be patient. May I be able to bear and forbear the wrongs of others. May I be honest and truthful. May I be firm and resolute. May I be kind, compassionate, and friendly. May I be humble, calm, quiet, unruffled, and serene. Because I'm mostly none of those things. So please let me be that. The discourse on loving kindness. Just as a mother would protect her only child, even at her own life's risk, so let everyone cultivate a boundless heart towards all beings, even Trump supporters. Let our hearts of boundless love pervade the whole world, so that all beings without exception might be happy. Even people that don't disagree with me. Closing dedication of merit. If I have attained any merit by the result of this practice, may be accredited to all beings everywhere. May they find the source of suffering and extinguish it. May they find the source of happiness and increase it. May all beings dwell in ultimate unalloyed nibbana. We will bow to the shrine 3 times. Thank you, Buddha statue that I got from Ross. Ross has good stuff. And then we'll bow to our Sangha brothers and sisters with smiles of gratitude. Final bell. All right, we nailed it. Give yourself a round of applause, guys. That was beautiful. I feel so.
Are stores opened in Texas?
What?
Are the stores open like Ross and the